Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. You know we're going to talk about the books that I read this week, right? We know this by now. This week I read 5 books. 5. So that means I was either deeply committed or actively avoiding responsibility. The answer is yes. We still are reading romance books. At least we were for this week because Black Love Day, Valentine's Day, all that good stuff. So you got to get the romance in. And we have a pretty varied spectrum of spice level, with a good amount of it being somebody should crack a window open because this is hot, right? I feel like I sound like an advertisement. Oh my goodness. And unfortunately, one of these books had me pausing mid-page wondering, did you write this? Or did your bestie Chetty write this? We're not beating the AI allegations. So basically we're talking about spice levels, emotional damage, and whether something was written by a human or it felt suspiciously robotic. Let's get into it. The first book that I read this week was Yes, Professor Hendrix by Mary C. Kim. I believe this is one of the books that was... How did I find this book? You know how I found this book? I was scrolling along Kindle Unlimited. I was scrolling through the books available and I saw this and I said, it falls into the category of romance. We're gonna read it. Let's get into it, right? For the most part, it was a jolly good time. It is effectively a erotica, I guess, about a single mom who has a pretty disastrous / non-existent co-parenting relationship with her ex, and she finds a new man, or the new man found her, and it's her daughter's teacher. It's a little racy. And it opens up with a disclaimer that chapter 4 has been rewritten because apparently the girls were in a tizzy over the original chapter. After I completed the book, I reached out to the author and was like, girl, can I see the original chapter? Because I just want to know how you intended this to be experienced. And I read the original chapter. There were far more egregious things in that book to be upset about that was not in chapter 4. But y'all are real selective about what you choose to be mad at. This is without spoiling, because I never want to spoil a good book for you. Without spoiling the book, there was a scene that I thought was just a little too far. And we're going to categorize this in a way that's like, if you are super petty, and maybe have like a very creative way of getting your lick back against people that you feel have done you wrong. There was somebody in that book that was severely emasculated. It's not funny. But y'all choose to be mad at things that there are other things that we should be talking about, and this is the scene that I'm like, girl, if you was gonna rewrite a chapter, it should have been I don't have any issues with it, just understand me when I say this. I personally I don't blush easily. I told y'all that. And when I read the original chapter 4 versus this particular scene that I'm talking about, and if you read this book, can we have a conversation? Because when I was reading Cutthroat by Octavia Grant, did you read it? Am I going to ruin it for you? You could just I'm gonna put a timestamp if you want to read it, because I'm gonna spoil it. I'm gonna spoil it. So just skip to this time. Earmuffs. So there was this particular scene in Cutthroat by Octavia Grant where old girl Eden, let's use character names, where Eden got her ultimate lick back against her, was that her husband, her fiance? They were married, right? So in order to get her revenge against her husband that had cheated on her with her sister, she slept with the man's daddy, who was in prison for killing the mom and the little brother in front of him, right? We remember this? So she goes to the prison, she with the daddy, right? She gets pregnant. She carries the baby full term just to say, I gave you another brother, and then gave the baby away. I thought that was a different level of petty that my brain just can't wrap my mind around. I'm like, wow, nothing tops this. Little did I know there was a book by somebody else where they took getting your look back to a whole other. So, oh, you wanna do something that's crazy to get revenge on somebody? I'm gonna show you crazier. This was crazier. So if you're somebody who enjoys I don't want to say toxic, but you know, if you're somebody that enjoys that kind of story, you're gonna buckle up because this is a good time, okay? So that was Yes, Professor Hendrix, and I would put this at very spicy. This is very spicy. So if you're somebody that blushes, don't read this. Like, don't read this. Don't read this. Next up, let me see how I found this one. I know I saw it on Threads. Hold on. No, I didn't. I saw it on Instagram. I'm not gonna find it in time. If I remember it if I remember her while I'm editing it, I'm gonna just pop it here. But one of the book girlies had reviewed 1201 by Bella J. And there was a lot of comments. I was like, yeah, really enjoyed it. Reviews were great. So I said, you know what? Let me read this Bella J 1201 book. I think that, this is also a romance, but it's also like a look back romance. Getting your look back story. When you think about who's the baddest in the game, this is the character, right? Let me read the description so I can make sure I'm not spoiling it. So the description is, picture your fiance cheats on you the night before your wedding with someone else he claimed was his cousin. Then just months later, he's at the altar with that same cousin. What would you do? What would you do?
Let's play the who would you believe game, okay? Why don't you ask yourself, if you were an adult, who would you believe, huh? Who would you believe? Who would you believe? Who would you believe?
Crash their wedding and unleash chaos. Accept an invite to attend a play party with his brother. Get the ultimate lick back by having a fling with his brother at that very party. For Time Henley, it's all of the above. But things take an unexpected turn when Time finds herself falling for Midnight Drayton, the very person she's despised for a solid 2 years. As emotions and schemes collide, Time navigates a path filled with revenge, unexpected attraction, and a messy entanglement. Step into Time's shoes as she seeks to rewrite the narrative she once knew, exploring the thin line between vindication and unanticipated romance. Now, I don't think this is a spoiler, but what the description leaves out is this is the fiance's twin, the ex-fiance's twin. So he cheats on her with their play cousin, who she thought was the real cousin, gets married to old girl, and she said, you know what? Give me your twin. Period. That's the story. It's very spicy. There are some raunchy scenes in there, so if you are somebody that blushes, do not read this. But if you're somebody who's in for a good time and you like a story about, oh, you got both brothers, go ahead and read this. I have to go through my Goodreads to see what books I finished this week because I can't keep up with them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about book number 3. I'm not going to disclose the book or the author because this is not, my intention is never to accuse anyone of anything without proof. And that can come off as bashing. And we're just not going to do that. What I will say is, why did I pick this up? Why did I read this? I have to look it up on Goodreads because it's well outside of my comfort reading. It's about a polyamorous relationship, which, okay, cool, whatever, I don't care. But like, that's not something I'm like, oh yeah, let me give me a book about a polyamorous relationship. So I need to figure out, why did I read this, so I could tell you why I chose this, because I know it was my bad. Like, I shouldn't have read it. I should have just left it alone. It's 213 ratings on Good. Oh no, it doesn't. This is the wrong book. How did y'all click into the wrong book? It has 868 ratings and it's 4.24 stars. I see exactly. I see why I read it. So there's somebody that I follow on Instagram, a book girly, a book friend, a book bestie, hello. And she read it, she liked it. And I was like, oh, okay. The review was a positive one. It sounded like this was gonna be a pretty good time. There was no indication that I was walking into a story that I would be questioning whether or not this was written by AI, right? It gave, this is an authentic story. The writing style is strong. There's an arc emotionally as well as like character development. That's what the review told me. And in fact, many of the reviews, I mean, mind you, these are people I don't follow or on social, but like, the reviews say the book was good and the scenes were spicy and people were blushing and clutching their pearls. And so I was like, oh, okay, let's get into this. Let's see what you write in. And it was only like 60 pages. Was it 60 pages? How long was it? 72 pages. So that's about an hour's worth of reading, give or take. I said, you know what? Yeah, this is gonna be a fun palate cleansing read because it's a new story. I consider short novelettes is like palate cleansers, more or less. And so I got into it. And not only is there little to no plot development, we were just jumping from and all of a sudden everybody's pregnant, but these so-called very spicy scenes, again, it was just like, yeah, this happened, they did this, but we're not doing it. You understand? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this make sense? Like, I'm very much a show don't tell girly. I don't know if it's the former ELA teacher in me. I don't know. But I really enjoy seeing the story, not being told what's happening. And there was just a lot of whatever, right? I didn't like it. But then the part that's fine. That could just be a testament to bad or weak writing. So maybe this is somebody who is developing their writing style. But then it gets to a point. And the point for me was there was a particular holiday scene where they were being told what's happening in the house during this holiday. And the book literally said somebody's uncle was passed out on the couch. And I really just had to stop reading and pause. And we only had like 10 pages left of the book. So really we didn't stop reading. But I was like, what do you mean somebody's uncle? This is your house. This is your family gathering. This is your family. Is the somebody not you? And so that's what made me feel like this was written by AI. And honestly, I feel like we're in an era where people are overusing tools or things that were meant to be tools and taking out the original craft and thought and artistry from the work. There's no heart, there's no soul. And I am not, listen. Let me come so you can hear me. I am not somebody who's anti-AI. Okay, I think that it is useful, it's beneficial. I don't understand this water argument to say, oh, don't use it because, you know, we're wasting gallons of water. I didn't research that, so I can't speak on it. And what I will say is, if you are using AI, it should be used as an aid, not as you, right? Forget the fact that they are like ripping off real life artists and stripping down the essence AI is trained from real people. Forget that. All of that aside, you can tell it lacks heart, soul, conviction, right? It gets to a point. Now again, maybe if you want to DM me, you know what? You can add me on Goodreads. You could just read the books that I read, and you'll figure out what book it is. But I'm not here to publicly say what that book is. I'm just telling you about the books that I read this week. Okay? Okay. Are you having fun? Are you having fun? Did you tune out? Oh my god! Like, comment, subscribe. So then, after I read that book, I for real needed a palate cleanser. I was like, this. It's not giving. So let me return to an author that I know that I enjoyed previously, and I'm interested in diving further into their catalog. Enter in Miss Tanisha Stewart. So back in January, I read Everybody Ain't Your Friend by her, and that was the deuce. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it, especially if you're somebody that's into drama, because as the title says, everybody ain't your friend, and it's definitely a lesson of, you know, be careful who you bring into your circle because people are trifling. So I returned to her catalog and I read The Hitchhiker by her. Now, this is not a romance. It's not a romance, but there was like an element of romance in the terms of it started off with she met this man on a dating app. I don't know why I did that face. I met my husband on a dating app. Anyway, she met this man on a dating app, and her sister was like, oh, baby girl, don't go fly out to meet no stranger. Have him meet you. And she was like, oh, but we've been together for 2 years. Turns out he was a serial killer. That's not a spoiler. But anyways, I read that book. That was a jolly good time. If you are looking for, it's not, actually I take that back. It is pretty gruesome. It's more of a horror than it is a thriller. It toes the line. It's a fine line that it toes between horror and thriller. She is a thriller writer. And she had a disclaimer. I think I remember this correctly. She had a disclaimer about like, you know, friends, I really was trying not to make this a horror and it was starting to get real scary. So my bad, but like try to rein it back. But I'm a horror girly, so I didn't mind. So I was like, yeah, chop up them bodies, hide them, kill them, shoot them, do all the things. I like the scary thing. But it was a great book. I really enjoyed it, and it was a page turner. It was a great palate cleanser. I did not feel like that was written by AI. I felt like it was written by somebody that may need to be evaluated, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing, you know? Speaking of somebody that needs to be evaluated, we're going to talk about her again. And, you know, at this point, maybe there should just be a support group, but I also understand this is a very much me problem, and I should just take accountability for subjecting myself to pain and suffering. But I read another work of Octavia Grant's. Since I'm working my way through her catalog, this one was not as traumatic. I didn't lose any more edges since last week. So, you know, this book was a little bit more tame. And this is crazy to say because it wasn't tame. But I read, what's it called? The Naughty List by Octavia Grant. It is, I think it's a horror. Naughty List, Christmas themed. And it's an account, A through Z. They go through, just like how Santa, you know, he sees you when you sleep and he knows when you're awake. So we account the crimes of people who are in this room who are facing their judgment day. And I don't really know how I would classify this particular book, but it reminded me of, it felt like kind of like a mini anthology without it being an anthology. I don't know if that makes any sense, but each person was its own story, right? So you did this, let's look at your crime specifically, and then we got a little peek into what they did, and then it all wrapped A through Z. Once we got A through Z, it wrapped up in the end, and then there was a little bit of a plot twist. And I said, oh, talk about plot twist. Can we go back to Tanisha Stewart? Tanisha Stewart is like the queen of plot twists. There was that plot twisted. That's the second book that I read of hers, and I was genuinely gagged, where it was like, oh, I didn't expect that. Okay, but back to Miss Grant. Back to Miss Stress You Out Grant. It was a plot twist that I didn't necessarily, there was a question in my head the whole time that I was reading it, because I was like, what? And then it all came together, and I was like, I see what you did there. I like that. I appreciate it. This is definitely for, if you enjoy horror, if you are somebody who's like, yeah, I'm a Freddy Krueger girl or Jason Freddy, whatever, right? Go ahead and read that one. It was fun. It was very much fun. Was that 5? 4? Yeah. Okay, so we're done talking about books. At least for this week. I do have something I want to share with you. I want to share. Why didn't you remind me? Why didn't you write it down? You know I'm forgetful. Why didn't you write it down so you could remind me what it is that I wanted to tell you? I told you about my online book club that you can join us on Facebook, right? I'll drop that link back in the description. I told y'all that last week. I remember. Because it was new information. I already told Threads, but I'm gonna tell you now. If you are or know of a Black indie author, I have opened myself up to beta reading, complimentary services. I'm only doing 300, what's that noise? I'm only taking 300 pages a week, and I'll link the Google form down below. All of the what is that noise? All of the details are going to be enclosed in the Google form of everything that you need to know if you are an indie author who is interested in having your work beta read for feedback. It's going to, all of it is covered. So if you know somebody, or if you are that somebody, go ahead and submit your work for beta reading. And I promise I do not use AI I won't feed your stuff through it. I read with my eyes and my pen, in this case, my mouse, because it's digital, but you know what I mean. But that's my announcement. Unlike Santa in the naughty list by Octavia Grant, I'm not going to hold you hostage. So I'll see you next week, and we can talk about the books that I read then. If you've read any of the books that we talked about in this video, let me know, and I'd love to know your thoughts. For next week, I'm very much interested in reading books that have less than 50 reviews that I find. So if you have any recommendations, / you've recently read something that doesn't have that many reviews, drop it in the chat, because I want to read it. I think I'll do that for the rest of February. That feels refreshing for me. So we can talk about some books that not as many people are talking about. And, the more we talk about lesser known titles, the more we circulate literature, and everybody can have their turn at being read. Because authors can't grow their audience if their books aren't known about or talked about. So let's discover some new reads together and chat about them. That's all I have. If you enjoyed anything about this, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you next week. Love you. Bye.